I'd like to welcome our next speaker. Her name is Dr. Kiruba Krishnaswamy, who is going to give us valuable insights on circularity approach in food systems to address hidden hunger. Dr. Krishnaswamy obtained her PhD from McGill University. She works on micronutrients fortification projects at the University of Toronto. Dr. Krishnaswamy has experience working with food and nutritional security projects in India, Kenya, Canada, and the US. She has received prestigious awards and recognition for her research, including the Canadian Commonwealth Scholarship and the NSF Career Award. Welcome, Dr. Krishnaswamy, and if you have any questions for her, kindly put them in the Q&A, and she will answer them once she's done.
Thank you, Stacy, for that kind introduction, and hope you're able to see my screen, right?
Yes, I can see it.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. I am Kiruba Krishnaswamy and an assistant professor at the University of Missouri, and I have a joint appointment in the Department of Chemical and Biomedical Engineering, as well as in Food, Nutrition, and Exercise Sciences. And thank you, Green Institute, for inviting me to talk about circularity approach in food systems to address hidden hunger. So today's agenda, we're going to talk about what is hidden hunger. I'm going to share an overview of our research program and one case study related to upcycling of micronutrients from food waste and summarize. So that's the agenda for today. And why did I even start my research program? Is because as we started the 21st century, we did see a lot of natural calamities from earthquakes to tsunamis, and we saw the pandemic. Whenever we have such climate crisis or a pandemic, it affects the vulnerable population groups. Around 828 million people have been affected by chronic hunger. So we've been talking about hunger from the previous, we had wonderful speakers earlier talking about hunger and food loss, food waste. So there's been, I'm happy to hear about all these discussions. But today I'm going to talk to you or bring to you something called the hidden hunger. So how many of you have heard about hidden hunger? Or, okay. So this particular hidden hunger is due to micronutrient deficiencies. It's due to, around 1/3 of the global population is affected by some sort of micronutrient deficiencies, especially iron, zinc, and around 7 million children before they reach their 5th birthday die annually because of malnutrition. So this is one big problem that is something that my research group is trying to address. Because micronutrient deficiencies or malnutrition is not just a stomach thing. It affects more than 1 in 2 preschool age children, and around 2 in 3 of women of reproductive age are affected by at least one micronutrient deficiency. And then we have, it also affects the cognitive development of a child. The physical growth is impaired. The immune system is also compromised. And that's why during the pandemic, we saw increased amount of mortality because of compromised immune system. The physical activity gets reduced, then we have issues related to bone health, skin, eye, and overall the human potential is kind of people don't reach the full potential that they've been given. So this is one big problem, right? So when I had this opportunity to start my research program, so it's called the Feast Lab. So we know on one hand we have hidden hunger, and whenever we talk about hunger, we always talk about wasting and stunting. But overweight and obesity also falls under the same umbrella. And this is what we call the double burden of malnutrition. Right? And recent Lancet reports have said that micronutrient deficiencies play a key role in contributing to this problem. So this is one problem on one hand. On the other hand, roughly 1/3 of all the food that's produced on this planet goes as waste, right? And we did hear wonderful talks earlier about that as well. So my question is, in nature, there is nothing called waste. Waste is a terminology that's created by human beings. Uh, so because in nature, everything is transformed into something beautiful. And so the question we're asking is, can we learn from nature? Because we need to be humble and learn from nature. And can we create circular systems to address hidden hunger? So this is the question that we're asking in our research lab. I know it's a complex question. There is no single solution to address it. So, how we are addressing that in our lab is through these three areas of research. One is upcycling of food waste, food loss to recover micronutrients from food loss and food waste. And also, if possible, prevent the loss, prevent post harvest losses of indigenous plants. So, that's one area. But because once we recover them, they are in susceptible forms that where we do encapsulation from nano to macro scale encapsulation to develop that delivery system for micronutrients. And then we fortify them back into foods, like in food fortification programs, predominantly addressing women and children health. So that's the population group we are interested in urban, rural, and tribal communities. So whatever we try to do in our research, we're trying to align with the zero hunger. That's the UN Sustainable Development Goal number 2. And as we finish this case study, I'll see how multiple SDGs are connected in order to address a circular food system. Okay, so the first case that I want to bring to you is upcycling of food industry waste to recover micronutrients. And I hope many of you have heard about Greek yogurt. Do you know for every 1 cup of Greek yogurt, we generate around 3 cups of acid waste? Okay, so this is a lot of waste. And over the past few years, the market for the Greek yogurt industry has skyrocketed, especially in the US. You can see it become a very popular breakfast item. So that means we are tripling the amount of waste that's generated. Okay, currently, how are we disposing this? We are, it's the product is produced in the farm and the industry, and then it's shipped to the nearby fields. Why it's difficult to process this particular waste is because it has high amount of lactic acid, it has low pH, and high biological oxygen demand. So that's why it's difficult to process it and it's generated in large quantity. Remember, for 1 cup, we generate around 3 cups. Okay, so it's either used as an animal feed or sometimes in anaerobic digesters, but relatively less amount. And then as fertilizers. Whenever it's used in this, it's pretty much leaks down into our water bodies and create a lot of algal bloom. And that is a very big problem, environmental problem to the aquatic bodies. So this is the current challenge that we have. So we had this particular problem came to us. On the other hand, millets. So I'll see how these both are connected. Millets are also underutilized grains in US, but in Asia and in Africa, we've been consuming millets for or ancient grains for a prolonged period of time because they are drought tolerant, they are climate resilient, they have health promoting compounds, and they are rich in fiber. So there are so many wonderful health benefits of consuming the millets and underutilized grains. So we had these two, an underutilized grain and an industry waste problem. And so what we did is we developed a technology to upcycle this by taking the industry waste, mixing with millets, different formulations, and filtration, spray drying, and developed a white, like a white powder. So this is just a brief overview of the technology that was developed. Right? And then we studied all the physical and the chemical properties of these developed powders, from water activity to dispersibility to density and porosity, the particle size. So we studied the potentials for this powder. And to just give a brief of Okay, just to give a brief overview of certain interesting findings from our study, we found it had high amount of carbohydrates, but ash content was quite high compared to the acid B alone. When we mixed them two, the ash content went high. The protein content was also pretty good. So then we thought, okay, fine, let's go and study a little bit more in depth. So we wanted to, since the protein content was high, we wanted to see what are the essential amino acids. And we figured out when we mix them together, we were able to get a lot of essential amino acids. So essential amino acids are amino acids that are required for the growth for human, like for our metabolism, but it's not produced in our body. We need to get it through food. Okay, so we found, okay, that's quite interesting that when we mix them, we are getting some high amount of essential amino acids. And then, then the ash content was quite high, right? And that's what's intriguing because the calcium that was present in the acid way, if it's not utilized, it will just go down at the drain. But when we were mixing them, it was the calcium was able to be captured. So we were able to encapsulate the calcium and recover high amount of calcium in these powders. So, and also high amount of zinc, where and potassium and so on. So you can see how beautiful these capsules look like. This is the encapsulated powders. And so that was quite intriguing. And we did a lot of formulations. So why I'm bringing this case study is in order to talk about circularity, right? We from a linear food system, we were able to take something that was going as waste, create some unit operations, and develop a formulation, study its properties. And now this value added powder can be applied in other an industrial application as a pharmaceutical or a nutraceutical or a health ingredient because of the high nutritional value that it brings to the table. And so that how we were able to create a circular food systems or circular economy from upcycling of food waste. And to summarize, what we were able to use an underutilized crop, which is drought tolerant, climate resilient, and take the waste that was coming from the industry, develop formulations, study its nutritional properties, and find health benefits, as a food ingredient or a functional food, and can contribute to so much more industry. So that's one case study that I wanted to share with you. And through this whole thing, imagine we started with zero hunger, right? But we were able to address the water, like SDG 6, water, innovation industry, the nine, and land on earth, climate crisis, health. So we were able to touch multiple SDGs just by addressing one problem. Right. And that's what when I say, whenever we talk about circular food systems, first thing we need to think what value it can contribute. Think about how we can understand the materials and then reduce its utilization. How do we reduce the energy consumption, the water consumption? How can we improve the biodiversity? Can we develop solutions that are culturally and socially appropriate so that it can contribute to the health and well-being of our community? And whenever we are creating these solutions, we need to be thinking, is it equitable? Is it transparent? And is it going to be resilient? So that's how we can, there is possibilities. Whenever there is a challenge, there is a possibility and opportunity also. So when we are thinking, let's consider all these factors in play. And when we're talking about circular system, as I summarize, we need circular systems for our sustainable food systems transformation. And partnership is very key for success in the 21st century. And we need everyone on the table, from technology to creativity to policymakers, everyone, so that we can have a healthy people as well as planet together. Okay, on this note, these are some of our references, and all this thing will not be possible without all my wonderful students and the funding agencies that have supported us throughout, and our collaborators. So this is just an overview of our students, and that brings to I want to leave you with this quote. It's because when we want to make a change, right, from moving from a linear system to more circular system, imagination is important, because imagination is knowledge is limited. I'm just borrowing the wonderful wisdom of Dr. Albert Einstein, that imagination encircles the world. And I would like to thank the Green Institute for this opportunity, and a happy World Food Day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kiruba. Thank you for that informative presentation. I love the quote at the end. There's someone who's raised their hand. Can you please stop sharing your screen?
Yeah.
So I'm seeing someone from the participants that has raised their hand. Probably maybe he has a question. Robert, he's put his hand down. There's also Gati. Do you have any question? Maybe they rose their hands by mistake. I have one question before you go. Can you please explain how the circularity approach addresses both environmental and nutritional sustainability, particularly in regions prone to climate-induced food insecurity?
That's a great question. So, just to hear you right, um, how circularity food systems can address both the nutritional security issues as well as the environmental security aspect,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So, whenever there is a, like most of our food systems, right?
Mhm.
If we take, like, for example, this case study of millets, they have been like millets, fonio, and all these underutilized grains, they are drought tolerant, they're climate resilient, and they have a very interesting low, like, they have been adapted for millions and millions of years. So that itself contributes to the environmental security. Like, it requires less energy, like it contributes to a more biodiverse system. So that is important. And also these ancient grains or anything, they are being adapted to produce more nutritious to the climatic conditions of that particular region, right? If you can like take certain crops and grow, you can grow some crops in different regions, but if a crop is already adapted to a climatic condition, and it can become like, it's not only contributing the environmental factor, but it is also contributing to the nutrition aspects. The only challenge that we see is it is not documented. Like we don't have, but like, what is the nutritional content of fonio or teff or millet? We don't have those documented. But for example, in this study, we were able to put them under an electron microscope. And that's where we were able to see the structural difference, the microstructures, because there are multiple millets, right? From Kudo to Proso to Banyar, and you can see there is a difference in the microstructure that gives changes in the physical properties, the chemical properties, and the nutritional profile. So all these things have not been studied or not been documented, and that's where we need more innovation and more interest, so that we can reutilize all these amazing um, amazing products that the nature has given us, which, because our current system only relies on the top 6 to 7 food crops, but there are hundreds and hundreds of other food crops that can address both the environmental issues as well as the nutritional issues together. I hope.
Okay. There's also a question from the audience. Let me read it for you. It says, please, given the increasing focus on sustainability, how energy efficient is the micronutrient recovery process, especially the spray drying method?
Excellent. Uh, so that's a great question. Whenever we are developing a solution, we need to see what is currently existing in the industry. For example, this particular product was related to a yogurt processing industry, right? And most of the dairy industries, they do have a spray dryer. So how do we, whatever infrastructure is already available, how do we repurpose it to create that solution? Because if we ask a industry or an entrepreneur to invest in a new technology, that will create a technological barrier, right? and increase the installation, the cost of production is going to increase. But first we need to see what are the technology, what are the infrastructure available, and create solutions by adapting to that availability. So that's why when we selected the spray dryer, that was one reason. Another reason is, compared to freeze drying and compared to other dryers, when we increase the production, spray dryers are economical compared to other forms of drying, because it's a continuous process. You don't have to other batch process to a continuous process. This is much more economical, and that's why in industry they use a spray dryer. So that's the reason we opted this.
Okay, there are more questions on the Q&A. I'd really appreciate if you take your time to answer them.
Sure.
Thank you for joining us today. You've really added value to today's session. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Yeah, right.